was a very humble nun in France in the 17th century, in which Jesus appeared to, of whom we have the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And we, of course, know the devotion of the Divine Mercy, which was very similar, which happened in the 1930s to Saint Faustina. But sometimes we forget that very similarly, it happened in the 1600s, basically with the same message, basically reminding us that he is thirsting for our love. And it's something to remind us, because we think that, we sometimes make the mistake that, like, in the good old days, everyone loved God and things were great, and it's always been up and down. There's been actually way worse times of persecution in the church and of faithlessness. And in the time, but of course, Jesus and our Blessed Mother are always trying to get us back to them. And we have to appreciate that. In the time that Jesus came to St. Margaret Mary, it was the time in which Jansenism got very popular. Have you heard of Jansenism? Jansenism is, so there was this priest in France, his name was Jansen, and he was, very charismatic and very, like, an erudite and whatever, and he was like the chaplain to this place called Port Royal, which was the place where all the French aristocracy would go on retreat, in a time that the Catholic kings were Catholic, and so that was part of being in the nobility, was to practice the faith, which doesn't mean they got it 100% right. It just means that they were Catholics, and they would go on these retreats. So this priest, he decides, he says that he studied the Old Testament and so on, and he decided that actually God was a God of vengefulness. So where we get the whole fire and brimstone thing. And so he made it to where that became like a new normal. And because it was charismatic, and because he had all the aristocracy coming to him, then all these people would be convinced by him, and then they would go back to their towns and cities and tell the bishops and everything, this is what we believe, look, we have to start teaching. So it became a thing. And then, of course, quickly it spread to the grassroots and to the popular, and then quickly it spread throughout Europe. And even though the Vatican, within a few years, which back then that would have been like lightning speed, made a bull saying that this was heresy, in a way it was too late. And so, it actually had bad consequences for centuries. Which was that mentality that God is out to get us and to judge us, and the fire and brimstone God. And so obviously it caused not only a lot of unnecessary suffering and a lot of people just developing a fear of God, and they were faithful perhaps, but out of fear, out of punishment. So religion became very ugly psychologically, in the sense that, the way they would treat each other, in the convents, and then it was just like a whole thing. And it was also a very elitist way of being, because this was a time in which it would have been where the royal courts of France, they wanted to show off to who was very snobbish, and who was the best at everything and the best, and so in a way they actually liked this because they felt superior if they were fulfilling all the obligations that they were pharisaical, basically, like what Jesus is telling us in today's gospel. And he called them out then, he calls us out now when we fall into those traps. And so the Sacred Heart, just like the Divine Mercy, was an antidote to that. It's like a reminder, and this happened in France as well during that time frame. No, you're missing the point of the gospel. And it's not like we don't want to, it's not like we don't have the commandments, but it's based out of love. And his invitation of following his teachings is out of love and not out of fear. Because nothing is sustainable if it's out of fear. And it's something to think about, because perhaps, a lot that has caused so much harm, because So for example, when Vatican II happens, a lot of people left like caged animals because that to them the faith was that like very like oppressive and dark and which was never the point, but it's to this day, like, you know, in a lot of the things we say it's more based on that. So in a way, like the enemy used this guy just as he used like so many other like the reformers and stuff. That's the guy, you know. So but we have to remember that in the end, Jesus is love. God is love, and that is what the Sacred Heart reminds us. And so today we ask Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque to always to pray for us, to intercede for us, so that we may always trust in that love. God bless you.
God bless you.